Welcome to the OC. I'm Phil. This is my co-host Corey, and tonight on the OC we are talking about vampires. Blah, blah, blah.
Very scary, kids. You got to cue the photo of Count Floyd.
Oh yes, Count Floyd of SCTV fame and fortune. So yeah, but before we start, you wanted to talk about our last episode.
Yes. Okay. So on a very special episode, Wendigos and Skinwalkers, one thing we neglected for our valued listeners out there, and we always have your safety in mind.
True.
How you kill a Wendigo.
Oh, I would love to know because I have no idea.
Yeah. Apparently, the key thing is silver bullets or a pure silver blade or stake and strike right through the Wendigo's ice cold heart.
Jesus.
Okay. And upon wounding the Wendigo's heart, which again, I think if you stab something into it, is it really a wound? Like it's kind of like a fatal.
That's impaling.
You're supposed to shatter it into pieces, lock the shattered heart in a silver box and bury it in a church cemetery.
So that's going to be difficult for indigenous folks. Pre-church, pre-silver mining, pre-bullets.
Pre-bullets.
I guess there's just no
pre-metallurgy, pre-blacksmithing.
Wait a minute.
I
guess. But if you do have to kill a Wendigo, silver, that'll do it every time.
Can't go and talk to Jack and Joe anymore because
no, they're fucking dead.
That's right. And they used I'm sure they never killed anybody like that.
No, they used baseball bats apparently.
Well, clubs, friggin' rope, whatever. I mean, but they weren't malicious about it. They were honestly, minds killing Wendigos, and
we weren't there to witness, so we
weren't there. Yes,
True
but
enough.
That's we were neglectful last time, and we plan on making sure this time, for those of you who haven't figured out ways of killing vampires, we're going to tell you some of the
to add
ways.
To your zombie apocalypse breakout kit. If you don't already have it, you can now order it at Ordered Chaos.
We should do that. Ordered Chaos branded.
Fuck yeah, we should.
Anti Jeffrey Epstein kits or something like that.
Oh yeah, that's like a butt plug and a few things. The anti-rape plug.
The anti-rape plug.
Yes, for old Jeffrey Epstein. So now vampires. This was yours. This is your baby.
It's my baby, my ugly baby.
But it was interesting. I learned a lot about vampires, and I think what's happened is vampires have become so sensationalized.
Popularized in the media, right? I mean, it started before. We can blame 1897's Dracula for kicking this off, right? Yep. And that kicked everything off as far as the romanticization of vampires, right? You saw it through the Victorian era. You saw it. You've seen other ones, like there's been the Vampire, Carmilla.
Yeah.
There's other books, and then let's not forget
Interview with a Vampire.
Okay, that's
What's that?
We're gonna talk about Anne Rice novels because those are.
Hey, listen, that was a fucking great movie. Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt, very short little vampires. Very handsome, short, little fucking dudes and then they make the kid a vampire.
And she's taller than Tom Cruise too.
She's like 7. And she's like looking down at Tom Cruise. Listen,
Tom Cruise. Let's that, you vampire. Yeah, the Anne Rice novels. So one of the things with the Anne Rice novels, I've never read them. So
I watched the movie and I thought it was good.
But the movie doesn't necessarily go into the level of I don't want to say eroticism, but let's say eroticism that were in the Anne Rice novels.
Yeah. So but that's what happens, right? So let's take us to where it began. Take me to the streets of wherever, Romania.
Well, before we do that, we have to sort of say, what do we take considered? What is a vampire, right? So if I say, Phil, tell me what a vampire is.
Well,
right. This is where the collective consciousness of, thank you, Dracula, for fucking this all up for everybody.
So, this is it, right? Because I'm a little fucked up about it because I read about it and vampires were not They were not the handsome, beautiful, very good dancing abilities,
Yep.
that we've come to know in our time period, right? So, but what I think blood sucking, no light.
So the key issue, the one thing I found consistent is that vital essence. Yes. So they don't necessarily, it's not always blood. It's mostly blood because that seems to be the easiest one, but there's that idea of feeding on a vital essence.
Like semen or
okay, so there are things like that where it talks about draining your vital essence. Succubuses, for example, work on that concept of draining your vital. Yeah, that's the whole.
Like they drain your. Yeah,
they drain your vital essence, right? And there was, I believe, ancient Chinese medicine had that whole vital essence thing. Like, no, you really shouldn't have a lot of sex because it'll wipe you out.
Oh, they're obviously not married.
But that you're right, the vital essence. Now, the funny thing about the light thing is that has been inconsistent.
That's right. Yeah, I didn't know that.
I didn't know that
until now. I mean, I after reading several different publications.
Yeah, because originally they could move around in like daylight was not an impediment.
Yeah, it didn't impede them at all. But yeah, and the other thing is supernatural strength and things like that tends to be more modern as well. Like where they
tend to be more. That's more of a that power element of it tends to be more of a modern.
Be able to shape shift and turn into so Dracula was a bat, right? Which was Bram Stoker. I mean, that's sort of a, he turned into a bat and in the story. But I mean, you have wolves and all sorts of
the control over lesser beings, like those. A lot of that stuff wasn't necessarily traditional, right? The whole idea of, although this is something I found somewhat consistent, the idea of not being alive. I'm not going to say dead.
Right. They were, still animated, but not having the same kind. Like they were clinically dead.
There was something off with them.
Yeah, and they were very thirsty.
Very thirsty. Right. And this plays into our Wendigo episode where you talk about that idea of them being something more than. Right. So, and the whole, we'll get later into the creation of vampires, and that's all over the place too, depending on where you are and what you're talking about. Yeah.
Well, there was a common theme there though. Like when I look at, and I don't know if you want to get into that now, but like maybe
we can touch on it.
Like that, when I looked at the history of a vampire, it was very, how do I say, brought on by plague, right? It was brought on by disease and disaster, basically,
right? Which often was used as the excuse for, or vampires used as the excuse. Oh my God, it's the plague. It's a or it's tuberculosis. It's killing everybody.
So tuberculosis was a big one.
Yep.
And especially like in, Europe. So you see the sort of the, I don't know if you would call it modern day vampire, but
the consumption.
Well, that's tuberculosis, right? It gets the consumption.
Consumption.
Or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, that's where, they were, everyone was dying.
And the idea that you had to come up with this explanation why people who seemed fine and then died.
Yeah.
Right? And you're like, oh, well, it must be a vampire. Or
the other, well,
because I think 17th century or 18th century, there was a mass panic across Europe about vampires.
Roughly the same time, though, that there were
plagues. There were some plagues running all over the
Black Plague. Yeah, all sorts of shit. Now, the one thing I did find really interesting, too, is that almost every culture has some sort of blood drinking, vampire-ish sort of being, right? So,
and some of them are blood drinking, some are more flesh eating, but there's all that concept of the predator prey. And I think that's the other consistent thing. All the vampires I've seen have all been predators. There has no conception of the vampire as not being
Yeah.
Like not be like being Bigfoot and being happy and go lucky and just minding his own business. It's always
well, no, because they're insane. Like the early vampire stories, or what do they call them in Romania? The Strigoi or
the Strigoi.
Strigoi.
The Voyeuska in another place.
Yeah. So you see them as being, insane too. Like they're more troublesome and bothersome than some, where you see modern movies and it's like, hey,
they're just trying to live their life, right? Like they're
yeah,
just going to high school.
I'm just a vampire. I'm just trying to get along with people.
Going to high school.
I'm
800 years old.
Yeah.
I'm not a pedophile.
I'm just misunderstood. I'm very pale. Yeah, and you move into movies like The Twilight, and you start to see, like, when I remember watching Dracula as a kid, and I remember I don't know which, well, it would have been 1980s Dracula, I'm sure, and he dies.
Fright Night was I don't remember ever really watching Dracula. I have a vague recollection of something, but I remember Fright Night, and that scared the hell out of me.
Yeah, well, and I remember there being crosses, and so that's another tend to be garlic and crosses, and what's the other stuff? There's other holy water,
right?
Yeah,
these are all things that are commonly associated, and a lot of those things are either religious practices or symbols, or the idea of like they talk about, I've heard hawthorn and mistletoe used.
Hawthorn, yeah.
Right. Some of these things which have also had traditions and other, but we're getting a bit ahead of that's where we're getting into some of the other cool stuff.
Take us back. Take us back.
So I'm going to take us back to 1576.
Well, that's really going back.
Well, we could go back a hell of a lot further, which I'm sure when you're talking from what you were telling me before, we're going back damn far.
There's a lot of history. But
1576, there was a plague that swept through Venice.
Right.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people died because, it was a plague. Cities, poor sanitation,
right.
Poor everything. Yeah. It sucked.
Don't romanticize it. It's not very romantic. Yeah.
They had gone off in the last, let me just see, when exactly was it? I want to say it was in 2000. Where is it? Where is it? 2009.
Mm-hmm.
So they excavated basically a plague pit. And one of the things they found in it was this skeleton of a woman with a brick
in her mouth.
Wedged in her mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And that was apparently to keep her from feeding on other people
who were thrown in the pit.
Well, that's right. Exactly. Right. So it was like,
yes, that was common practice.
Yeah, so common practice. So this is one of the earlier where you see, oh, look, there's a vampire, right? Like, in the sense of they did that to keep her from doing. Now, reasonably sure she was dead at the time they threw her into the pit and they put the brick in her mouth.
So, and if they were suspected, so here's the thing: is if someone was suspected of being a vampire or being, one of these undead. I mean, undead was sort of
it's a catch-all term.
Yeah, it's a pretty catch-all.
Not
term.
Dead. Undead.
Yeah, and they would do like some pretty fucking horrific things to the body, including decapitating the body.
There was one where it said basically you cut the head off and you put it near the buttocks. Like,
well, it was going to bite somewhere.
It's going to bite somewhere. It's going to bite their own ass, right? Or you bury them face down, right? Or or
they stakes into the ground and basically that impales them. But the head being removed and then garlic jammed in your yap is another pretty popular thing. But that's
happened all in this era, right? We're talking 1500 or I guess 1500s. Okay, I always get confused. So if we're talking 1500s, we're actually talking 16th century, or are we talking 14th century?
14th century. So like 20th century was the 1900s.
Okay, gotcha.
Right now we're in the 21st century.
Because we're in the year 2000.
Fair enough. So we're always 100 behind. But that shit still happens today. Believe it or not. So like places like Romania, there is a very strong belief. And now I wonder if that's when Bram Stoker took, so his novel was based on Transylvania.
Yeah, let's jump ahead to 1897. There's some stuff in between we'll talk about, but let's go to 1897.
Yeah,
because this is where a lot of the stuff that everybody, if I said vampire, you say Dracula, right?
Right. And I think Bram Stoker was like the, who would he be like? He would be like the Jules Verne of the genre, right? Like, Moby Dick and the it
did really well.
Yeah. Which the Dracula?
Yeah.
I mean, no, he's done fantastic, like Frankenstein, like Mary Kelly. Is it Mary Kelly?
Shelley.
Mary Shelley. Sorry.
Mary Kelly was
Bloody Mary?
No. That was Jack the Ripper.
Oh, right.
By Julia Roberts in the movie.
What?
I'm sure it's Mary Kelly.
I don't know.
I better make sure. Now I got to go off and check that.
Oh, fuck. But yeah, the Bram Stoker's Dracula, he loosely based it off of Vlad the Impaler.
Very loosely.
Very loosely. He made Vlad out to be this really horrible guy, which he wasn't really nice. However, I mean, he was defending his people.
Yeah, like if you dig into some of his history, right? Like all the terrible things he did.
To the Ottoman
Mary Jane
Empire.
Kelly, by the way, for the record. Mary Jane Kelly.
I'm glad you clarified.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, exactly. When you look at the Vlad, so Dracula is based off of Vlad, loosely based off of Vlad Tepes, Vlad the Impaler.
Vlad Dracula. Wasn't his last name Dracula? Vlad
Vlad, the full name in for Vlad third the Dracula.
Yeah, so he was, and that I don't know if the superstitions, maybe he went, okay, well the superstitions are super strong there.
Oh, very much. Yeah,
right, and they still are. That these things are real. Like you don't joke about being a vampire in fucking Romania. You get killed. Somebody will stick a fucking ash stake through your heart. Now, ash, and I found this out too through some of my reading, the cross that Jesus carried was made of ash.
Really? That's a good solid wood.
He did, and it's heavy.
Is that why it's called Ash Friday or Ash Wednesday?
Oh, maybe. I don't know. I really don't know that part, but so the correlation between the best wood to use to kill a vampire was ash. Be it also, it makes great baseball bats.
True, exactly. And
it's a hard wood.
It's a hard wood not a brittle, but it's not a brittle wood. Like it's a hard, solid wood, but it's not something that's gonna shatter. Like
and it's gonna do the trick. And
this is where we deal with some of the ideas when you deal with other religious cultures, whatever. Like
well, you see these crossovers, right? Like you start to see, oh well, the cross is dangerous to the undead.
And so okay, let's talk about the cross for a second.
Sure.
So I had a fascinating discussion with my mom about this.
Sure.
And there's a lot of theories about one, it's not the cross itself,
right?
It's the idea of an icon of faith. So it could be the Star of David.
But you don't hear about that in the movie.
No, you don't. But let's not forget the movies, Universal.
Well, it's Catholicism. I mean,
it's Christian, right? Christian. So that's the big one. But that idea that it's either the icon of faith, right? And the power either is derived over the undead, the Nosferatu, is either your faith is based on either yours, so the holder of the holy icon, or the undead's original religious denomination.
Oh, so that's very confusing. They were Buddhists.
If they were,
they rub a Buddha on him, and he's like, "Oh."
Well, technically, they should want to not eat you because they're supposed to say suffering. The root of suffering is desire, right? So, or need, and the need is desire, and there's a linkage. But
Crazy.
Anyway, that's one of the things about the religious icons, and that's another concept. Now, is that a case of how an allegory for how religion dispels superstition, which some people would argue is just another form of superstition?
Well, this is it. So you have holy water, right? So you give
which I think is predominantly a Christian concept, isn't it? Like I don't know if the Jewish faith has the concept of. I know they have wine. Right?
I mean, maybe
like
a holy sacrament.
Yeah, I think
I'm not sure.
Christian faiths have the holy water, the wine. I'm suspecting the Jewish faith has something. I mean, it's derived from it, isn't it?
Well, I mean, we don't say that around here, Corey. That's Old Testament, man. Don't let the Jews hear you.
Don't let the Jews hear.
On behalf of all the Jewish people,
that's right.
We do apologize.
You can hear Phil. But yeah, talking about some of this stuff, right? You look at, okay, and Stoker went sort of root it back into our Dracula thing. He pulled from all this stuff.
He did. Yeah. Right? And he did a great job. But he also wanted to make him, kind of like this brooding Hamlet of I'm so old and I've never felt love and the lust of a woman.
I believe they call it Victorian oh God, what's the exact there's an exact term. It's a Victorian era, but
whoring.
No, it's like the romantic, it's like the romantic period of the Victorian era.
Oh, okay.
And there's also the idea that, like you said, that we have this brooding prince
of darkness.
Prince of dark, exactly.
Right, Dracula. He's the Prince of Darkness.
Right.
And difficult. He doesn't die. He can.
He can.
He can. But I think it's left open now. The movie Bram Stoker's. Is it Stoker or Stoker?
I want to say Stoker because.
Yeah, I want to say Stoker.
There's no R. The only R is at the end.
I always say Bram Stoker.
Bram Stoker, Phil's porn star name. Ram Stroker.
Ram Stroker. No. Bring in the stunt cock. Who am I? Anyway, no, Bram. Like when you watch the one with Keanu Reeves. It was pretty good.
And Winona Ryder.
Wait, was it Winona? And what was his name?
Anthony Hopkins. Gary Oldman.
Gary Oldman played
Gary Oldman was Dracula.
You did good. He was the freaky little. He cuts his tongue. He's like,
the bum hair. Like I'm like,
oh yeah,
not a good look for you. Like I get it. You need some blood, but you could do something with the hair.
You've got a little. Yeah, that's a giant ass on your head.
Exactly. That's why he's not scared of you.
And then they play on the shadows and they play on, he's very mystic and wise. And so that's the other thing too, right? He's turned into now, he's not just a vampire. He's also like a seer and
but I think it also comes down to the idea that in that particular movie, they sort of retconned his origin. His wife committed suicide because somebody sent her a letter saying he died, and then he comes in and stabs and spits on the cross and it bleeds, and then therefore he's condemned by Christ, right? Which
here we go. Enroll the Christians.
That's right. Exactly. Start putting the stakes up.
Fuck. Get the pitchforks.
Now, mind you, I think he was fighting the Turks because I think in the Wallachia it was the Turkish wars, right?
For which? For like the Vlad
in Transylvania, like I want to say Vlad the Impaler. I believe it was.
It was the Ottoman Empire.
Turkey, modern, which is also known as modern day Turkey.
Turkey, that's right, the Ottoman Empire. So, and he didn't just fight them; he fucking beat them off. I mean,
with
not
both
literally.
Hands. With both hands.
No,
hence Bram's name.
Okay, he fended off.
Yes,
the Ottoman Empire. So yeah, and he did a really great job. So he's like a legend among his people. He's not just, and yes, he put bad guys on pikes. That's what he liked to do. I'm not judging.
Dead at the time, and again, let's not forget
they were semi-alive. And he would eat. Did you read that? He would sit and like have dinner.
He would have dinner, surrounded by all these like, hey,
hey Harold.
And the on spike
hanging around.
It was not great. No.
So yeah, I mean, you've got this guy. I mean, so that's what he's loosely based on. And have you seen the movie Vlad the Impaler. What's the movie called?
Dracula 2000.
Something like that. It was Dracula.
Dracula Unleashed or something.
It wasn't very good.
Is it the modern? Like there's, I think
it's a very modern take.
Okay.
And
I haven't seen a Dracula movie since.
And what it's based on is that Vlad the Impaler has to go to this because he knows the Ottoman Empire is coming. The Turks are coming. And he goes to this mountain, and it's kind of this cursed mountain, right? And he asks this, what would be a vampire, a very old vampire, for the ability to help, save his people.
Okay.
And that's how he becomes Dracula. So weird take. It wasn't a bad movie, big budget, had really good special effects. You should watch it. It was actually pretty good.
Okay. It's probably on Netflix or Prime.
Probably. Yeah. But I mean, it just goes to show, Bram Stoker just sort of started it all. And here we are.
He started it with the Dracula thing. So coming back, let's duck back. That was 1897 for Dracula.
Yeah.
Talking about books. Let's talk about two other books. Well, okay. Technically one's a treatise and one's a discourse. Did you read about the treatise on apparitions of spirits and vampires?
No, I didn't.
Okay. This is written by a monk named Antonian Augustin Calme. Okay. And essentially in this book, what he did was he went around, this Christian monk went around and said, okay, I'm going to go and get the details about all this stuff, ghosts, vampires. Right. And he wrote it down in a book and said, okay, well, here's the things. And he sort of
later became Van Helsing.
He did not. No, he didn't become Van Helsing. It's funny you mentioned Van Helsing because Van Helsing, one of the things they comment with Dracula was Van Helsing became the archetypical vampire hunter, the scholarly, and that archetype you saw in so many different forms and movies. Right, but this fellow went around and actually collected all of it and essentially wrote that, what was it called? It was officially dealt with his extensive investigation into occult matters regarding the apparitions of angels, demons, and other spirits, which also included dissertations on witches, magic, sorcery, and vampires and revenants. Huh. And he analyzed those accounts of various topics related to Bible, mythology, cultural, blah, blah, and essentially said, yeah, it's all true. Basically, that's sort of the conclusion is that, hey, maybe not so much that it's all true, but he gave credence to all of it by investigating and not saying this is garbage.
That this is fake. Yeah,
that's right. That these don't exist. No. He's like, no. These accounts, right? So similar to the idea that I talked about before about the histories of Herodotus, you had somebody go around. Now this guy didn't fluff it up at all. Like I suspect it's pretty dry and boring.
I suspect.
But at one point, the Pope said, "This is awesome work, bud. Keep it up."
And you're doing a good job. You're doing God's work.
Right, and that was 1768 is when that was. So that was, you're looking almost 100 years before, over 100 years before Dracula was published.
Wow.
Right, and so now you have something written down that
says, hey, this is real.
This is real, right? So we look at this and we're like, oh, and it's not.
Well, you could buy a kit. Like, do you ever see these? I saw one on the what's that show? The Pawn Stars or whatever. Like a legit vampire killing kit, and it was beautifully made. Yeah, it was like steak, hammer,
like legit, as in authentic, or legit.
Like it would have been like 1800s. I mean, it was, and a flask which was for your holy water. Then there was some sort of
sacramental wine.
For something. And it was like, like you see like the old doctor's kits, right?
Oh, like the old doctor's bags, right?
Yeah, but this was a vampire slaying kit. Yeah, so someone had put that together with silver, and like the spike had been at the bottom was silver tipped.
Okay.
And it fetched a fair price. I can't remember exactly what it was, but anyway, you see these, and if you Google vampire slaying kits, you'll see it.
Okay, no, that's cool. I'm not surprised. I'm surprised it showed up on Pawn Stars because
there's some weird shit that shows up.
Well, I know,
people
but
find it and they go, well, this must be worth a lot of money.
Well, it probably is,
And
I guess.
Yeah. So the other thing is, our technology has come so far that, we have a lot of answers to a lot of things. So
we think we have answers to some things.
Right.
We still have answers to everything, but we still know, for example, vampires don't cause plagues.
Right. And the other thing was too, is that decomposition of bodies.
Yeah.
So every body decomposes, doesn't matter what it is, but it decomposes. And so depending on how long it takes to bury the body, there's a lot of things that happen in decomposition.
And the conditions of when you're burying a body. So cold climes, if it's cold.
For sure. Yeah, your body. But some of the things that do happen is that you do get, the body does expel fluid, sometimes through the mouth and nose, that it looks like blood. This is a common misconception. And when bodies are, left for a period of time and they bloat and they do a lot of weird things. And
so this is the one of the things they say, oh, look, you can see they're a vampire because their hair and fingernails have grown.
And that's not really growing. They're
really
recessing, right?
Correct. So, you have the cuticles pulling back, so your nails look longer, but really what's happened is your
skin is and that's also around the teeth. So
they look like they have fangs.
They look like they have large canines. Yeah. Yep. So, and you got to remember too. I watched a show about. I'm kind of boring that way. I watch weird shit. So it was about dental. If you look at the canines from even a few hundred years ago, teeth have changed. Like our bodies are adapting to, and some of the foods that we eat, right? We're eating things that grind our teeth down. You find, and actually I have my canines grinded down. They were very sharp. My dentist is like, okay, I'm gonna just take those off. And I said, sure, because I used to catch my lip on them. So the very pointy teeth.
So you'd be sitting there with blood dripping down, right?
No.
Blood would be dripping
they were
down,
just,
and you're like,
you'd be like, I remember them going, fuck. Let me just, and he just took the little, no freezing, nothing. He just went, zzz, 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 took them down, smoothed them off. And I was like, fuck, that's awesome. And my son is probably going to have, pointy little canines too, but they're for chewing and ripping meat. I'll cook my meat. I don't have to tear it off the bone. Fuck.
I got a knife for that.
That's right. So, the one of the things that I thought was also interesting is that their teeth were hollow, like for sucking blood.
Yeah,
now, that's a later implement, right?
Implement, right? Because nothing's less sexy than a dude.
Let me get the butter knife. I cut you up and start lapping you up.
That's right. That lamprey.
Well, and that's the other thing. There are several creatures that drink blood.
Well, and so because of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's where you start seeing those things start to get incorporated in, because science says one thing. So, hey, look, there's this thing. It drinks blood, by sucking through hollow fangs, which I don't think is how vampire bats do it. I think they bite and
they just lap it up. Yeah. And there's something in their saliva too. I don't know.
Yeah, it's an anticoagulant.
Coagulant, yes.
Coagulant. Yeah. Mosquitoes do a similar thing. That's why horse flies, by the way, really hurt when they bite, because they don't have that.
Oh.
Mosquitoes, when they bite you and they suck blood, this is why you get itches. It's anesthetize it, and it's the anticoagulant.
Anticoagulant.
Whatever's.
Yeah. Your brother and I used to Shane and I, we'd fucking let them bite us, mosquitoes. And if you flex really hard, you can actually make them blow up. It's so awesome. If you're out there, folks, if you want to see something cool, they just, because if they can't get their beak out and it's just sucking up blood, and they just go little. Yeah. What you do as a young boy, bored in a tree.
Yeah. Dumbness. Oh God.
But yeah, there's a lot of creatures, you've got vampire bats, which leeches,
leeches, which were prominently used as a medical method. And actually,
I'm not sure when that would be.
Bloodletting. I'm trying to think bloodletting. What was bloodletting big on
So
them.
that was Victoria, like that was in that time frame, which
But I think it was even before then because
like
because
pirates would let bloodlet and weird shit.
well, yeah, I mean, you look back to the ancient Greeks when they talked about the four humors and
yeah, that it was like good for you, like they'll bleed you.
I
What the
feel
fuck?
better and lightheaded.
Oh, I
Just
feel very
like-
weak. Oh, went a little too deep there, Corey. On the old Achilles heel. Fuck.
That's right. Don't bleed me from there.
But yeah, that's the I don't know. And every like culture. So what was it? Do you want to go through? Did you do some of the cultures that
I did touch on some of them. So
Yeah.
and this is where it gets again back to the previous thing we talked about, the idea of what defines a vampire.
right.
Like what characteristics, and then you say, okay, well, if that's what a vampire is, traditionally when we talk about vampires in the West, we're talking about like Romanian, Transylvanian, Eastern European vampires,
right,
and not just the guys who hang out in the clubs. We're talking the guys
which you had visited at one time, I do believe.
that was my story. I'm saving my story till later.
Oh, good.
that's later. That's later.
Yes, I hope your wife has heard this one.
She has, yes.
So the Jews had their own, right? And what was its name? It was
Well, so this is where it gets a little bit what's it?
yeah, Luca.
Yeah, there's
and then so Aluka literally translates as leech.
Right?
Yeah, and that was a Hebrew and the Motzdam.
The mutts. It sounds like a car, doesn't it?
Yeah, Motzdam.
And this is where when you deal with some of them, where's the one? Where is it? Do they have there's the? I'm probably thinking of something else.
The Lilith is that
the Debuk, but I don't think that's a vampire.
Yeah,
No, there's so many. Like I've got a list of them, and it's just not so.
It's huge. There, I mean, to sit here and list them off is just it's not.
I tried to pick. What I got? 1, 2. I got 3 that I find interesting.
Okay, we'll give her.
Okay, so first one.
Yeah.
Chupacabra.
Okay, yeah, and I read that too.
The goat sucker.
The goat sucker. that the cryptid. And
yeah, it's a cryptid. So and this is what this is where we're starting to cross, right? Is the chupacabra a demonic entity that feeds on livestock? And feeds on
or is it a vampire bat type thing?
Yeah, exactly. Right. What is it? So it's one of the images of it is as essentially a large demonic looking dog.
Yeah,
but I've also seen it look lizardy too.
On our Instagram, I see quite a few different posts because we're seeing all sorts of stuff like that, and they all kind of look fake.
Of course they all look fake, right? Because if people had pictures of them or a stuffed chupacabra,
yeah,
right. And
that'd be
but
cool.
this goes to some of the idea that hey, it consumes blood. Now it doesn't necessarily attack people. And funny enough, they actually have characterized chupacabra as being the southern equivalent of the Sasquatch. Yeah, I don't know how the hell they came up.
They're
with
very,
that.
yeah. I don't know.
Hey, friendly,
because they do have in Florida. It's like they call it a swamp beast or something. Yeah.
Okay. Well, this is
very different, like Latin. Yeah, I don't know how far, but the chupacabra is supposed to be small. It's little.
It's not. It's a fearsome. It's fearsome, but it's like small but fierce, right? This is not. Yeah. This is not a man-sized.
Like a French bulldog. Small but fierce, like Scrappy.
Like Scrappy Doo. Like Scrappy Doo. All right, you go there. There's one of mine. Go ahead. Tell me another one of yours. You got the Jewish vampire.
Well, that was so the Jewish. Well, hold on. I kind of lost it here. But it wasn't just the Jewish vampire, but it was. Let's see here. So this goes back like a long time. Like
the chupacabra apparently only goes back to 1995, believe it or not.
Yeah, but this
just
like
so
the Lilith is basically
the Lilith, yes.
The Lilith, yeah, and it's mentioned in like Old Testament, so what it's
supposed to be Adam's first wife made from clay or something, right?
Yeah, so it was before Eve, there was Lilith. Lilith was a bad bitch.
Okay. And that's funny. The stuff I've read about that, when you mentioned Lilith, there's two things. One, she was bad, but the other one was she was like, no, Adam, I'm not going to sit and do the dishes.
Right. She's like, no,
she was like, we're equals. Right. And,
So, and she was able to, so not only could she, she would transform herself into other animals and things like that. And she was like a succubus type thing. She would make her victims feel like, that she was irresistible. First lady, so to speak, first lady of the world.
Like Barbara Bush.
Like Barbara Bush. I'm a big deal. I'm a Barbara Bush. Yeah, Barbara. She had
I guess probably a Jacqueline Onassis Kennedy, probably more like that.
Maybe a Jackie O. Probably.
Jackie O, yeah.
Not Barbara Bush or Nancy Reagan or something.
Say no to drugs, kids.
Say no to drugs. Yeah, war on drugs. But anyway, so she would also drain victims of it is called the Kabbalah, or life forces, or blood, all sorts of things. So this is going way back. And so the Jews were very afraid of this. This is not a cool thing. You don't want to meet Lilith. She's going to kick the shit out of you. Your turn.
All right. So since I'm going to do a brief detour here, because when you talk about Lilith, now we're talking Old Testament.
Yes.
One of the other ones is not her son, because it wasn't her kid, but Cain. The idea of Cain being the first. Now this, okay, so
but he didn't drink anybody's blood, did he?
No, but it was the idea of murder, the idea of killing, the idea of now, and this is where it gets a little hazy, right? So if you were to go off, let's go back to the 1990s for a minute, okay?
Sure. We lived it.
Wolf released a live action role playing game called Vampire: The Masquerade.
Oh.
And one of the premises in it was the idea that the first vampire was Cain.
Really?
And they link it back, right? Here's the stuff Cain, because the idea is that Cain's punishment from God was not to be smote down, but he said, you will be, I will put my mark upon you and nobody will fuck with you because they'll know I want you to live and suffer or something like that.
He killed his brother, right? He killed
his brother Abel. Yeah, little Abel.
Little fucking poor Abel. Never had a chance.
Never had a chance. Didn't say anything about drinking his blood, but that's one of the, if you had to go with the, now, are we still talking culturally different? Because that's Christianity, but it crosses face.
Yeah.
Back to you.
Oh, well, Mesopotamia.
Oh, Mesopotamia.
Persians. Yeah. So they had a blood-sucking demon. What was it called? I don't know if it had a name. So anyway, they were some of the first stories. And I read that through everything I read was Mesopotamia had the first kind of tales of, now you're going thousands of years.
Because when you're dealing with Mesopotamia, you're actually dealing with one of the sort of
the oldest cultures, like Persia, right?
Correct.
So it's the Persians. So which would be Iran today and Iraq and all that area, right? That would have been all in Persia, I believe. Iran.
I took a course in this, and there's that whole area
the Middle East, basically.
Basically the Middle East. The reason why it looks like a burnt out husk is because we've been living there. It turns out humans, when they move into places, wreck the joints.
Yeah, and it's been like under war and siege for the last like 150 fucking years or something. But so you have Mesopotamia, and you go, okay, well, holy fuck, like how old is the idea of a vampire? And they don't really. There's no real written. Same as with the old Jewish Testament. There's like, I shouldn't say Jewish Testament, the Old Testament. Saying, exactly that Lilith actually, drank blood via sucking it out of their necks. But I mean, it is talking about drinking blood. So, anyway, your turn.
All right, let's go. Since we're talking mostly Western, let's go East. So let's talk Chinese.
I didn't read anything about the Chinese.
Oh, the Chang-Chi.
That does sound familiar.
Yes. The hopping vampire of Asia.
Oh, and it hops along, doesn't it?
So this is like, I'll just see. Okay, so this one here is interesting in that, like, you've got really long fingernails. Like a lot of the common characteristics, feeds on blood, derives it. Now, in this case, not that light bothers it. It derives its power from moonlight.
Listen, Linda, have you seen Big Trouble in Little China?
Isn't that an awesome movie? That's one of Kurt Russell's best.
It's fucking amazing. But that dude was
I believe they had him as a
remember, long fingernails.
Mm-hmm. The pale skin.
He had to drink the blood of the virgin chick.
The green-eyed
girl. So he could get his youth back.
Yeah.
See how my brain works? It all comes full circle.
And the funny part about this is how they talk about how you have to kill them.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Like in this case, to kill the if it's an adult, they say adolescent versus adults, right? With I guess mature versus not mature. Right. So the first one they talk about is the idea of the salt or rice. So
I couldn't believe that. I thought that was so fucking stupid.
I know it's so ridiculous. It's like, okay, so I drop a bunch of rice in you, but fine, fair enough. So in this case, what you would do is you drop rice or red peas or iron filings, and they would have to count them. And then what you would do is you would sweep them along.
So let's be specific for the audience here. If you're being chased by a vampire, you are to have your salt ready, at the ready. Yeah. And you are to toss it behind you, all the little grains. And let's not forget the old saying. If you throw salt, throw it over your shoulder, or you won't live to grow much older. Or if you spill salt, throw it over your shoulder because you're being chased by a vampire, I guess. That's right. So the fucking vampire, he will have to stop and he will have to count every single grain. And while doing so, you could club him like a baby seal.
You could do whatever you want. So in this case, what you do with the hopping vampire is you would sweep it basically, and you'd sweep them back to the resting place. And it would follow you. Yeah, it would follow you back to its resting place where you're sweeping these grains of salt it's trying to count. Right?
That sounds so stupid.
And then in this case, to deal with the adolescent one, you do what's it called, a Buddhist or Taoist death blessings on its forehead. So you've seen this in a couple of movies where they do the little piece of paper and they stick them to things.
Yeah.
Okay, so you do that to its forehead. And another method is to burn a rice grave, and basically spells to bind to the grave. With the adult versions, apparently it's destroyed by the noise of a bullet being fired or the sound of a large enough thunderclap. And as soon as it falls destroyed. Over, well, as soon as it falls over, then you burn to ash. So
with what? Does it say
fire? I guess I don't know.
You can incinerate
something
body.
Loud sounds cause it to fall over, and then you light it on fire, which seems like
you need a loud sound and a whole bunch of napalm.
That's what I don't get. Like with the adolescent one, I'm like, why not just put down the salt? It's counting the salt. Get your Molotovs out.
Yeah, burn that fucker.
This is death blessing stuff. Whatever. Anyway. Anyway, they sound like there's.
It sounds like it was written by the vampires, to be honest.
So let's see what we can get people to do.
Yeah, let's see. Watch them with their salt. Check this out.
All right, back to you, buddy.
I don't know if I have anything that. Ancient India. Apparently, there's quite a ghoul-like being that inhabits corpses, and it's called a Sanskrit. It's found in old Sanskrit folklore.
Okay.
And ghoul-like. Drinks blood, chases down people, sounds like knows if you're naughty or nice. Kind of
Krampus.
He's a bit of a Krampus. Krampus is fucking terrifying.
Hot damn Germans. That's all I can say.
Yes. Krampus will come if you're not a good boy. He'll come and get you. Yeah. So other than that, I think that was pretty much the ones that I was like, man.
So the other interesting I got, and this is more of just because of, I'm not drinking because it's Tuesday.
Yeah.
The Irish Derrig-Dull.
Derrig-Dull?
Yeah, it's a vampire-like spirit in Irish folklore. Okay, so
you got so many. Those Irish.
They got tons of them, right? Because of all the fairies and that, right? And that's what they argue with this one. They're like, it's apparently where is it? Revenant. In other cases, they say it's an evil fairy. Right. So this is where we're dealing with, again, crossing borders, right? Mm-hmm. We talked about characteristics of vampires, vital essence. So these guys are blood drinkers. Now, in this case, the Derrig-Dull is either an incredibly beautiful man or woman.
Right.
Traditionally a woman, apparently. And lures people and then sucks them dry.
sucks them off. Right. Well,
Stonehenge, I guess.
Stonehenge.
You're gonna get an R rating, Phil.
No. I mean, sucks their neck.
Yeah. Yeah. I apologize in advance to all the viewers out there who are offended by Phil's use of the word "suck." And what was the other term?
You can't not use the word "suck" with vampires. Think about it.
Let's use feast, drain, draw.
Feasts them off. Feast themselves. Anyway.
All right. Yeah.
Stonehenge is not in Ireland, by the way.
I know it's not in Ireland. I'm just.
The Blarney Stone is in Ireland.
Blarney Stone. The idea and the way you would defeat this vampire is basically put rocks on top of its grave.
Right.
So it can't get up. I guess it skipped arm day, so it can't.
It missed. I've got 4 rocks. They're small, but this thing is
damn it.
Oh, it's too heavy. I don't have another one, but I you know what? Why don't we talk about like what's that thing? The poly.
Oh, okay, the polypheria or where I'm.
Oh no, it's porphyria.
Porphyria.
No L. It's
porphyria.
Yeah.
Oh, poor porphyria.
Now you were saying it was disproven.
Okay, so it's disproven, and so for those who don't know, porphyria is essentially a group of liver disorders. Okay. And one of the things, this was 1985, a biochemist by the name of David Dolphin.
Nice name.
Yeah, nice name. Yeah.
I got that one too. Yeah, David Dolphin.
Right. Proposed that basically the vampire folklore was people suffering from porphyria.
This disorder. Yeah.
Right. Because a group of a group of rare, largely hereditary blood diseases, which they say porphyria is liver, and it's buildup, right? So they say porphyria victims are extraordinarily sensitive to sunlight. Even mild exposure can cause severe disfigurement. So
bubbling and blistering.
Right. To avoid sunlight, people with serious cases go out only at night, just like Dracula.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day. So nowadays you can be treated with the injection of the blood product. Back in the day, porphyria victims might have had to treat themselves by drinking blood.
Right. And it would help, right?
Well, I mean, if you get
it would alleviate some of their symptoms.
Right. Fair enough. Right. And it's inherited, but the symptoms are not met until brought about by stress. Suppose a sibling with an active case of disease bites you to quench his thirst for blood. And then all of a sudden, latent porphyria activates.
That's weird.
Garlic apparently it contains a chemical that worsens porphyria symptoms.
Oh.
And causing sufferers to avoid it. And now apparently porphyria also has victims develop more hair over body parts and face, which I've never associated hair with vampires. It's more of a werewolf thing, but
it is more of a werewolf thing. Like those 2 brothers in in South America. You ever see those guys? They're fully covered. They're the whole family. It's a genetic,
ZZ Top had some
full eyelids have hair.
Eyelids have hair
everywhere. Yeah, they're very hairy brothers.
So back to the points against, right? So one of the problems is that let's look at the obvious one. I'm going to say obvious because it's obvious, not obvious. Sunlight.
Yes.
Okay. Up until recently, and I say recently in the last, what would we say, 100 years?
Mm-hmm.
Right? 150 years. The idea that vampires couldn't go around in sunlight, that's a recent addition. Like the original folklore didn't have that element.
Well, Bram Stoker, that was part of his.
A creature of the night, right?
Yes.
You want to go with the creature of the night. Daylight is purity, right? If you truly want to make something evil and dark, make sure it can only come out at night. So there are a bunch of that stuff is like, okay, so right there, that's a big stretch. And this is where they'd actually done I want to say a 1995. It was basically a 1995 article that started to talk about all this stuff, saying, hey, no, this isn't not necessarily it, right? So porphyria victims don't crave blood. Okay.
Right.
And drinking blood, theoretically, not that they've tried it recently, shouldn't alleviate their systems because it's getting broken down in their systems. So it shouldn't be passing on. Like they don't have a craving for blood.
Right.
What do they now start randomly go drink blood?
That brings us to the clinical vampirism.
Ah, yes.
More commonly known as
over to you.
Yeah. Commonly known as Renfield syndrome or Renfield syndrome
Yes,
is the obsession. No, I don't know where.
You don't know where you know where they got the idea of Renfield syndrome?
No, tell me.
Who was Dracula's sidekick in Bram Stoker's Dracula? Remember the first lawyer, Renfield? He winds up, feed me, master.
Oh, I don't remember that, but now it all makes sense.
Yes, that's why they call it Renfield syndrome.
Yeah, it's the obsession with drinking blood, and this is a thing. Fucking weird people. 50,000 people apparently, as of 2010 census for this sort of disorder. Yeah, they're documented. It's been around since 1892, roughly the same time as Bram Stoker's Dracula. So
now they just drink, like they
just drink it. They fucking love it. Yeah, like, well, you ever watch that show there, like the weird
My Weird Addiction?
Yeah, like people eating like chalk and fucking glue and fucking wallboard and dirt. The one woman just eating dirt. I'm like, oh God, what the fuck is wrong with you people? But blood. That's the thing. Why don't you tell your story?
All right. Well, I guess this is as good as point A because we are technically touched on this. So let's go back to the 90s again. Okay. I recently got my driver's license.
I wasn't there for this one. Fuck.
Yeah, I know you weren't there. You would have loved it. It was a great trip.
I know.
Myself, Mike McVeigh, and Aaron. What was Aaron's last name? Do you remember?
I can't remember his name. He was just weird. He was a weird dude.
Aaron. We'll just call him Aaron.
Yeah.
We drove down to see my buddy Jay and his brother Marcel in Toronto. Okay.
Yes.
Now I'm 17, driving a beater of a car. This is a terrifying experience on the 401.
400
it was just awful. So by the time we finally got to the apartment, I was like, okay, yeah, I need to get out of a car and I need to get something to eat. So we went and had like pizza that was too hot, and my buddy burned his face because it was too hot for his hands, and he was trying to shovel it into his mouth and wound up dumping it. It fell on his face. Hilarious.
McVeigh?
Yeah.
That's funny.
So we wound up getting some fake IDs made and decided to hit up downtown and see what bars we could get into.
Right.
The only bar we got into, and I suspect it's because they weren't very picky about who they let in, was a place called Sanctuary.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes. So very dark, kind of cool. A lot of if you're big industrial music, definitely a place, a lot of Trent Reznor going on there.
Right.
Yeah. Turns out it's a vampire sex club. So
you're so lucky.
Well, so lucky. So I'm dressed. So this was shows what a styler I was, right? So I've got cowboy boots on, and I got blue jeans and a white t-shirt and a black trench coat. So I fit in with the black trench coat, nothing else. But my buddies Jay and Marcel are dressed like fucking rappers.
Yeah,
and just
very white rappers.
Very white. That's right. Total white rappers, right? And I want to say Mike and Aaron were dressed very preppy.
Yeah.
So we fit in not at all. Yeah. I did not. I'm pretty sure I did get propositioned to partake in some bloodletting at one point. But
bloodletting? Now, didn't Marcel get stabbed or something?
So he went back later on after
by himself,
apparently. And he got into a fight. He got into a fight, and somebody drew a knife and cut him across, slashed him across the hand.
Yeah, if he had some sort of nerve damage or something.
Yeah, which is, you got tendons in that, right? So again, I didn't know it was a vampire sex club when I went there, and I'm pretty sure had I known that, I probably wouldn't have gone there. So
probably not.
But yeah,
it's like the Blue Oyster Bar in Police Academy.
Yeah, except with more or less sucking.
You're in there and you're like,
so, but this is part of the subculture element that you've seen.
Yeah, for sure.
And now this would have been, like I said, 90s. So, I mean, Twilight didn't come out until 80s. Now, Anne Rice.
Twilight was 2000s and some.
Yeah, that's what I said. Or did I say 80s?
80s.
Yeah, no, Twilight was 2000. But I believe Anne Rice was between like.
It would be in the 80s. I think that's. Yeah, be a young Brad Pitt, a young Tom Cruise. But yeah, I mean, the times reflect, we don't have plagues anymore. We don't have unanswered tuberculosis problem.
COVID-19, buddy. Or
all right, it's not quite a plague. It's more of a bad cold.
Bad cold kills. The cold that kills.
It does kill. Yeah, no, I don't want to downplay COVID, but I'm fully vaccinated, so you know what?
I've got another shot lined up.
What are you getting?
God willing, Pfizer, because I got the first Pfizer, so I'm gonna be like, hey.
Oh yeah, no, didn't.
Yeah, please don't mix. I'd like to. I get it. They're saying, well, they're both mRNA. Okay, fine, I get it, but I'm pretty.
Yeah, the studies are showing if you have Pfizer, get Moderna. It won't hurt you. But
I would rather get the Pfizer that they know that I'm sure they did a hell of a lot more studies that the Pfizer booster shot works better with the Pfizer
booster. Yeah, with the Pfizer first shot.
They're probably we're working out now that it doesn't kill you if you get the second booster of another type. It doesn't kill you. That doesn't mean it's better. I mean,
I don't know, but get it.
Yeah, I got it booked. I'm just not dropping everything to do the vaccine hunters.
No. But yeah, I mean, vampires are so much fun.
They are.
I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed this one.
No, so vampires. So let's talk about the important public safety announcement.
How to kill one.
How to identify how to kill them. Okay.
All right. So
if
you don't have your salt with you.
Don't have your salt.
Well, I would use a stick. I would aim for the heart, preferably. And because that's apparently one of the ways you can kill them.
Yeah, it's amazing. You hit something in the pump that moves the blood around and it kills it.
It's weird.
It's amazing. It's amazing how different they are from us.
Oh, they're so different. I mean, if I got hit in the heart, I wouldn't feel anything.
I would just go off and my spleen would take over.
It's so funny because, like, oh, well, if you're not a vampire, I mean, this won't bother you.
You staked me to the heart, asshole.
You just
cut my head off.
You cut my head off and
so
down my windpipe. Yeah,
we sort of talked about that in the earlier part, right? When we said, okay, like now these aren't so much how to kill a vampire. Kind of, it's more like if you have a sneaking suspicion the corpse you're burying is a vampire. Here are some of the things you can do.
Yeah, you can lop its head off.
And
stuff it with a brick.
A brick works. Stick it between its buttocks. So
not the brick. Stick the brick in its mouth. Put its head between.
There's an order. There's an order to the list of things you need to do. Do not stick the brick in the buttocks.
Yeah. What are you, sick?
Wait a second. I don't understand how. Fuck. I don't understand how the vampire was killing people. We followed the instructions. He's still biting. He's walking funny, but
he's definitely got hemorrhoids. But now it's yeah. So yeah, if you can purchase a vampire slaying kit from your local vampire.
Well, this is the idea, right? The whole staking with using a wooden stake, right?
Wooden stake.
They talk about silver as being also a good.
Yeah, but not bullets. Like silver it hurts them, but it doesn't kill them.
Correct. This is
sunlight.
Silver.
Sunlight is, you may want to, coax it into the sun. See what happens.
That's right. Or if it's a version to the sun, because if you're trying to identify vampires, right, traditionally you've got the idea of the no reflection, which
now that's not always the case.
No, it's not always.
Some have powers that can create a reflection.
Yeah, and the whole idea of disliking sun, the whole idea of inviting them into your house. FYI, folks, bad idea to invite anybody you have suspicions of into your house unless your house is booby trapped
with stakes made of ash.
Sure, why not? Whatever, punji, whatever floats your boat. The idea is
the best thing is to avoid. Yes. I'm just going to put that out there. If you avoid vampires at all costs, or carry a stick.
Well, I love the idea when you talk about the dealing with vampires, and they say, stake them, cut off their head, and burn them. Okay, well,
yeah, that
deals with like everything. Like there's, I don't think there's anything that wouldn't like. That's just being thorough, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's common mob practice.
Mob practice. Kill it with fire.
Kill it with fire. Most things die with fire.
So speaking of killing it with fire, we've got let's go with 2 cases of real vampires.
Okay.
Do you want to touch on those? Do you want to take one and I take one? Because you know what I'm talking about.
Do I know I don't. Well, I don't really know them like you do.
I don't really know them. I mean, I'm not good friends with Mercy Brown.
Okay, well, Mercy Brown
or Sarah Tillinghast.
I don't know that one. I'll do Mercy Brown.
Okay, so how about I do Sarah first? Because chronologically, Sarah was technically before Mercy.
Okay, well, yes, you go.
So Sarah, she's this is one of the vampires of Rhode Island. Okay,
right.
So apparently, basically, prominent farmer. One night, the farmer had a disturbing dream about half the trees in the orchard would die. The prophetic nature of the dream starts to come true when his elder daughter Sarah quickly becomes ill and passes away from consumption, right?
Or tuberculosis.
Or TB, depending on how well. So died of something. She's dead, right?
Yes.
After she died, a bunch of his other kids start to get sick and die.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So all of a sudden, like, oh my God, we got people dying for no reasons. Consumption is the reason, folks. That's why they're dying.
That's why they're dying. Yeah.
That's why they're dying, right? Anyway, at this point, they become suspicious of the dead. So the neighbors exhume the bodies, right? And start to examine them. And Sarah, the remains all appear to be in normal state except for Sarah. Although she was the first to die, her body's preserved unlike the others. The neighbors are, their eyes are open. The hair and fingernails appear to have grown. There's fresh blood found in her heart. This proves to them is the cause, Sarah's caused the other deaths. And to end the threat, they cut her heart out, burn it on a rock, and then they're all reinterred.
And they're all better now.
Well, so the farmer's wife recovers, but the son dies, becomes the final victim.
Right.
So that's Sarah Tillinghast. So they exhume the body, knows, oh my God, look, she looks like she's not dead. Let's make her dead.
Well, and this is a very similar story. And it's also Mercy Brown's fate. She would die. She had died along with a lot of other people. And this is in Rhode Island. What is it? 1882, I believe. And there became a huge vampire panic at this time. So bodies are being exhumed. So they were buried.
Yeah, Sarah was 1799. So Sarah's was like almost 100 years previous to Mercy.
Yes, yeah. But it's a similar situation. So a bunch of people were dying. So you had entire fucking like towns die of tuberculosis. Like, I mean, it was a big deal. Like, or whatever, consumption, tuberculosis, TB.
Yeah.
But anyway, you had lots of people dying. And so their bodies were being dug up, exhumed. And what happened with Mercy Brown was her body was not decomposed, like to the degree.
It was like 2 months or something, wasn't it?
It was a weird, So in itself, it was strange, but that led to more panic. So, she looked almost like nothing had happened. Like she was still alive. And then they went through this panic of exhuming tons of bodies. And then I'm not sure exactly what they did to her body, but it was.
I can tell you if
you don't mind. I believe it's very similar.
It's very similar, except it gets even a little worse. So,
well, I think they decapitate her.
So there's the decapitation, but the primary things they did was they cut out her heart and lungs.
Oh yeah.
Burned them, made it into a tea, and fed it to her sick younger brother. Perfect. Who then proceeded to die 2 months later.
Of tuberculosis.
Of tuberculosis. Exactly. Didn't help.
Wonderful. Did not help. No.
Right. But it was that idea that this was the folklore. And there was a doctor saying, what the hell are you people doing?
Yeah. But what happened too in that time period? I mean, you're seeing a lot of weird shit in the 1800s, right? Like people are just sort of becoming woke to all sorts of fucking stupid shit that just kind of has followed us along into the 2000s. And here we are. But you look at her story, and then there was a whole like fucking people were being dug up, and similar things were happening all over the place.
It's essentially desecration of corpses, right? Like they were.
But these corpses were also contagious, right? Like I'm not sure that. Yeah, so you kind of go, all right, maybe you should have left them in the fucking ground. I don't know. Hindsight's 2020, but fuck. But it shows a very real fear, and like stuff like this is still going on in Romania. I think we talked about that at the beginning of the show. Like some of this stuff is like legit happening where, like Harry's brother died, but I think he's a vampire. And they'll do this, you know what I mean? Like they'll do these weird ceremonies and fucking like bust their coconuts open and fill them full of garlic and weird shit. Like it's I don't know. It's kind of mind blowing that a modern society would still believe this stuff. But
well, and this is the idea of modern. So when you go to some cultures, I know Africa is rife with a lot of superstition. Like for
a lot of places,
if you're albino, they want to chop parts off you.
Yeah, not good to be albino in some of the African, like Nigeria.
I mean, just the fact you're an equator place to begin with sucks for an albino. But
are you kidding? Yeah. That is not good.
But the other aspects of where they want to chop parts of you up to use for things.
To make, make like special elixirs and stuff. I was watching that. Yeah. So
I crossed over that when I was talking about like when you start doing, so the cool part of when you do this research for like vampires, you start seeing some cultural practices and you start going down a couple rabbit holes. You sort of
some weird shit, man. There's some weird shit out there. And there's a lot of cannibalism in the world too, right? So drinking of blood, my old man used to eat blood sausage. Like when we had a farm and we like, you'd kill the pig. I remember you'd have to kill the pig. And I always hated that because I loved the pigs. They're so cute. And anyway, but then you have to bleed them. So you shoot them and you bleed them and you catch that fucking blood. And we had a pail that you would do that with. And that's when you make blood sausage out of. It's fucking so gross. And he'd fry it up, make blood sausage and fry it up and eat it. I'd be like, God damn, can't do it, Dad. That's disgusting.
You're not hungry enough, son.
Oh, there were days. But have you ever tried it? You used to eat head cheese. My grandma made head cheese sandwiches. You used to eat them.
Yeah, no, I'm good.
You remember that?
Yeah, I remember.
And you were like, I'd be like, no, you can have that. You'd be like, I'll eat it. Fuck it.
I'm a bit of a garbage can. I mean, I used to really like liver until I found out it wasn't a clever name. Like, this is actually liver of an animal.
Oh, I enjoy liver. My wife won't let me usually.
Because it stinks up the house.
But I enjoy liver. I enjoy a lot of that stuff. But blood sausage was not one of my. Just couldn't get into it. I couldn't. And there's I don't know. I think I did try it. Very iron, very metallic, like sucking on pennies sort of taste. But not my thing, not my bag.
So do we want to recap now? Like sort of recap?
Sure.
Okay, so vampires consistently feast on vital essence, dependent culturally across the board. That's the one thing they all seem to do: feast on vital essence, whether it's blood, energy, urine, whatever. Right?
Urine. Yeah.
Generally speaking, the ways you become a vampire, sometimes it's a curse. Sometimes it's because a cat jumped over your body.
Yeah.
That's one of the ways. Yeah. They're just weird
just
stuff.
Weird. Yeah. That's the old way. Then you could get bit.
That's right. Then there's the modern
and turn you.
Turn you, right? Yeah. Which is not consistent with a lot of the old ways. It's usually evil, dead, bad person, something like that.
Yeah.
You can't go wrong with decapitation, staking, decapitation, and burning to get rid of.
Right.
Well,
that's true.
If you suspect the body's a corpse, there's lots of kinds of ways of desecration you can do to handle that. Or suspect the body's a vampire. A corpse is a vampire.
Right.
Go off, cut the head off, stuck it between the buttocks, put a brick in its mouth, not its buttocks.
Not its buttocks.
Drive metal spikes through it. There are many different types, and we can all blame Bram Stoker for the current interpretation of vampire.
I like his current. I mean, we can blame him.
I thought it was cool. It was fun.
I think he's fun. I think it's cool. I mean, we wouldn't have Hotel Transylvania without it.
Wouldn't have Count Floyd.
Or Count Floyd. Or what was that?
Nosferatu.
Or what was that other show that we used to get on Saturdays there at the friendly, what was it called?
Friendly Giant?
Friendly House of Frankenstein.
Oh, it's What's
it called? With the witch and there was
It wasn't Friendly House of Frankenstein. It was
something House of
Oh God. Hilarious House.
Hilarious House.
It was I think it was a Hilarious House. Yes.
And he had like the hello, I want to suck your blood.
Which would be cultural appropriation right now on so many levels. Like just you doing that accent is probably going to get us sued by the Romanian Justice League.
Probably. All right. Vampires.
Yeah, what's next week, Phil?
Well, I want to do the Delatlov Pass.
The what?
Yeah, it's called the Delatlov Pass.
Is this in Russia?
It's in Russia.
Is this for those people, those campers?
There are 16 of those campers, or 9.
Oh, this is good. This is a good one.
Yeah. So
okay.
I don't want to tell you too much more. I want you to go and take a look at it. Freaked the fucking shit out of me when I watched, or for good reason. It's kind of one of those you don't hear. It's not a real public, like it's not one of those stories that everybody hears. You kind of skip across it and you go, whoa, okay. So let's dig into that. Let's see what we come up with, and yeah, I think it'll be fun.
I think so too.
Awesome, man. All right. Well, you ready to call it? We'll say goodnight. Okay.
I'm all done, friend.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching the OC. My host and I, Corey and Phil. It's like a weird ending for us. I normally do it a little differently. It's
uncomfortable.
But thanks for watching the OC. My co-host Corey and I are saying goodnight. So good night. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Don't invite any strangers into your house.
Especially vampires. Throw your salt. Fuck. Weird. All right. Good night.